Good morning. Denise Dryden out here on Bainbridge Island. It is a glorious day to be talking about this topic. It's been sort of bubbling to the surface all week, so I'm pretty excited about it. It's called Be the Observer. And what I wanted to do is look at sort of the sensitive and empath labels and notice that for me, for years, I've been studying HSP stuff for about 5 years now and integrating it into everything I do. And it's a term that works but doesn't work, and empath works but doesn't work. So I wanted to sort of play with it and point out some of what's going on with our younger generations and come up with a concept that might be a little bit bigger than both of those. So hang in there and follow me today. So I want to talk about observant, being an observer, being observant. So the first thing is that when I work with family systems, when I work with an individual, what I always do first is sort of an assessment tool, which is a bubble map. Take a piece of paper and, put their name in the middle and then start to collect words and perspectives and things that describe them. And, the most consistent word that comes up in every one of my bubble maps, usually one of the first or second words is observant. Is that I'm either really super observant or my child has been observant since they were a baby, sort of paying attention to everything that's going on. So I thought I would start with a definition of what observant is, right? Or to be observant is to be good or quick at noticing things, to be keen, to be perceptive, alert, watching, watchful. It is also adhering to the rules or laws, customs, duties, even religious rituals, and to be really mindful of those. So you're observing, religious holidays. You're observing the standard operating procedures of your work. You know what they are, and you're mindful of them, and you're guiding yourself through those. That's what observant means. Another thing is that it's paying attention, close attention to details, and it's attentive. Like, you talk and they have an answer. So there's something there. There's something in that quick intelligence of being able to grasp what's going on in the external world and respond to it. I think that's a fabulous tool. So when I'm saying let's be the observer, let's go find more out about that and start to bring it up, right? So the first thing is that, the HSP term started in 1997 with Elaine Aron when she wrote The Highly Sensitive Person. And she has done a phenomenal job providing hard clinical research information on what happens from the external in to the body. And she's identified it in the DOES, whether it's depth of perception, overstimulation, emotional response, or sensory activation, right? And so it's outer stimulus, and it comes from a lot of different places, and it causes a internal reaction to our nervous system. So it's outer stimulus causing something internal, which can also mean that anxiety levels go up. So when we see sensitives and empaths, we see a lot of kids or adults that can be pretty anxious, and then the way that anxiety goes into different places is it's again, interesting, right? So what happens with a highly sensitive person is that there's something that goes on outside, noise, light, tags, the food they put in their mouth, anything. And what happens is that there's an internal response, right? So there's a stimulus, a cause and effect. The really interesting thing is when you take this up a notch and you go into the empath, of course, has all of those. They respond to the outer systems, all of the stimulus that come from outside of ourselves, external. Only with the empath, it impacts them internally, especially emotions. So the invisibility of emotions. So we can do a really easy cause and effect with the bright lights, the fireworks on the 4th of July, the smells of certain kinds of foods, the chemicals in dryer sheets, whatever. We can trace all of those physically, cause and effect. With empaths, it's not so easy because it means that there's energetic motion, right? Energy in motion that is our emotions that hits us. And when it hits us, there's a response. So an empath has an internal response to people, family, friends, classrooms, communities, global things. And so that it's affecting them and causing the same kind of levels of anxiety, which makes sense, right? And it's still cause and effect, only it's invisible. And an empath has a nervous system stimulation equal, if not even greater, to the physical, external to the internal. So I've spent a lot of time over the last 3 years building an awareness of this external and internal triggers and stimulus and responses. And I've worked on it with parents in the parent-child relationship, the partnership between spouses, even within ourselves. And then I've watched them take this into their employment areas, whether they're leaders, their bosses, or into just leadership, period. And so when we know this, and we know that there's an awareness of this cause and effect, outside stimulus, internal reaction, become aware of this. This has a tool that we can use. So when I look beyond the empathy label and sort of look at increasing this, or at increasing this awareness, what I've noticed is that because I've been in the therapeutic industry for the last 25 years, is that these levels are going up and our kids are becoming much more observant, much more perceptive, much more reactive, much more in tune to what's going on in the outer and inner world. I'm going to call this energetic intelligence. So we have emotional intelligence, we have social intelligence, we have all these different kinds of intelligences, right? This is energetic intelligence. This is the ability to read rooms, to read people, to notice that that high observant skill set of ours is really working for us in such a magnificent way. So with energetic intelligence, we connect the outer external stimulus with the internal response. And so we have a system of being observant of cause and effect. We pay attention, we notice things, we see patterns of behavior, we watch, mom's gonna say this, dad's gonna do that. This person's gonna do this in the coffee shop, that person's gonna do that. I'm gonna say this in a meeting and I'm going to watch the ripple of emotions go through the table. And so what we notice is that the triggers and the patterns are connected. And we start to read them, and we notice the energy trails. This is really cool. Once we realize that we're readers of information and that we're observant, it gets kind of interesting. So the next level of realizing that we see the cause and effect, the triggers, the patterns, the energetic waves, what we do is we own this energy field. So the empathic skill set, the sensitive skill set, is that there's an energy field management, which is there's a field out there. This whole room is going to bounce around when there's this many people in it. This conversation is going to bounce around when I have it with my lover, my partner. This house is going to have a field around it when I'm working with my kids. And then you notice what's happening in that field, right? So this is my energy field. I'm going to notice what's happening when I'm in it, and I'm going to apply tools that I've learned, skills on how to use those tools, and new techniques to shift it, right? Just to shift it. Because Einstein was beautiful when he said that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. So we can only take those energetic patterns and we can transform them from one thing to the other, which is this stimulus is going to hit me. I can rage up, I can power up, I can try to control, or I can go, wow, watch that hit me. And then I like to use the example of even that sort of matrix, that slow motion where you just sort of back up and it just goes right by you and you think, yeah, I can see why they're doing that, and I'm not going to take this personally. This isn't about me. This is somebody having their own response. So the observer has tremendous gifts. They notice things, a lot of things. They pay attention to all of the details, and then they honor the systems because they understand that they're not random, that there's a ritual to them, that there's a meaning to this pinging, this pattern that happens. And they're mindful about how to transform this. So an observer doesn't just jump in and create chaos unless they're angry, unless they're out of control of the stimulus in their system. If they're wise and if they're present, they understand that there's a system going on. And then when they become when they honor the ritual of that pattern, they have so much more power, because observers see the big picture, and they can also see the big picture down to the minutia. So that was something else that came up, was that, that they can be, that anyone observant can be really, really hyper-focused and really scattered and overwhelmed. Hyper-focused, scattered, overwhelmed. A lot of times that can present like ADD, ADHD, which is I don't know which energy field to read. I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to do this. And the observer can see repetitive patterns and identify when things follow patterns and when things change. So, whoa, that just shifted. Alert, alert, alert into the system. Something's wrong. Mom's mad. Dad came home in a mood. I'm noticing that there's a level of silence in this partnership that shouldn't be there. I'm noticing that everyone in the room is stiff. Right now, something's happened. So we notice, we know when something's going on. So of course, within relationships, family systems, community, work environments, global activity, we're going to notice all of this, and we're going to collect it like it's information or data. It's almost, we can break it down into something, an emotional reaction into something very static, very real, very easy to measure, which is it's just an energy pattern. And so we can collect energy information. So when our nervous system is activated, there's a complex system of responses, right? This activation will start all of these nervous system reactions and the productions of chemicals and hormones in order to rebalance it. So when we're overwhelmed, we get flooded with this, and then we have even a heightened level of attention sort of in that fight, flight, or freeze. So all of this is about how we manage our field of energy, and that's where our mastery is. So when we become these masters with the intention to understand it, with the intention to see what's going on, we also can take this a step further, which is the observer sees change, the observer sees intention, the observer sees the agenda. They see the mistruths, the half-lies, they see the full lies, they see the cover-ups. They see the manipulations. We're going to push this over here. We're going to move this over here. They see the agendas. And so a lot of times when someone who's very observant is sharing, hey, I'm noticing that this is happening, watch how many times that they were like shut down, persecuted, called names like conspiracy theorists, right? There's patterns. I'm seeing threads. You guys were, alert, alert, alert. And no one else sees it, or no one wants to see it, but the observer does. So that the way that the observer manages this information in this field is that they read people, they read situations, and they predict the next thing that's going to happen. So the part that sort of I want to keep putting in there is that because we have this keen observant ability, right? It's really almost impossible to surprise us. Like, we can see the nuances. I don't know if anyone's ever had a surprise party or surprised me, really surprised me. And when someone surprises me, my whole body glows like, oh my God, you pulled something past me. I was surprised. And it's such a joy because it doesn't happen very often. So right now, what I want to say is we can go from nothing surprises us, we see everything, we see the agendas, and we've got a lot of shit going on right now, right? We've got levels of lockdown, we've got the threat of another virus outbreak, we've got protests in the street over all sorts of racial tensions, anger, financial issues, we've been stirred up, there's violence. We have some deep beliefs and deep patterns coming up from everyone. And now, if you go to astrology, this is all intended. If you go to spiritual purpose for all of this, it's all intended. We're going to get stirred up. So the observer's greatest skill is to really become the observer, which is step back a little bit. You're on high alert. You're going to see what's coming up on the surface outside. You're going to see what's coming up inside yourself. You're going to see what's coming up in your culture. You're going to see what's coming up all the way around you on the global. And the most important thing is that what you see is that you begin to trust it. You begin to trust it because it matters. So as part of this video, I always provide a little bit of skills or tools or some guidelines. And so for right now, these are guidelines and suggestions and what to do when you've identified yourself as being an observer, when you're highly observant, right? So the first thing is to own it. Own it, stand tall. I read external stimulus, I read internal response, and I know how to pay attention and I know how to bring these things up, look at them and go, oh yeah, there's that. And then the idea is to move it through your field and not hold on to it and let it cripple you or shut you down so that you can become that feminine energy of more responsive and more fluid. So that's the first thing, own it. The second thing is get curious about the patterns on the external. There's going to be certain people, places, things, events, scenes, and senses that are going to activate you, and they're going to activate you for a reason. I want you to pay attention to those and to start to get curious and dig around, right? And start to pull some strings and watch what reacts, but to actually get curious and familiar with the patterns that are going on, okay? Third, be the observer observing yourself. So take one more step back, which is watching you watching the world. Because when you watch you watching the world, then you notice, then you're a witness. And then you have this sovereignty, which is, oh my gosh, every time I'm around that person, this happens. Every time that I read this storyline, I notice all of the strings. And so what we do is we start to watch ourselves putting this together, kind of like the way we would be a parent watching a child solving a puzzle and going, look at her go, right? Look at her go. You want to be able to do that to yourself. Wow, I'm putting some pieces together. I'm really all my skill sets are coming online and I'm interacting with the information and I'm seeing it and I'm feeling it and I'm collecting it. And so then you're like, good job, we got this, right? So fourth is to be mindful and selective, very selective and wise about what you allow in this field, what you allow in your body, what you allow around you as far as toxic people, news, stories, gossip, atrocities. Go bigger. I'm going to always tell you to go bigger, go higher in your perspectives and go, there's a lot of stuff going on right now about this, but what happened over there? We're not talking about that anymore. And these two, what if they're connected? And then, oh no, what if there's a third thing that's connected? What if there's a fourth thing that's connected? And then you start to put your own pieces together, right? And then number 5, in all of our interpersonal relationships, in our, whether we're a parent, whether we're a partner, whether we have these colleagues and these friends that we've known forever, start getting neutral and being compassionate because they may not be seeing what you see. They may not be able to see what you see. They may not be as observant, as ready. They may not put the pieces together. So we have to have a lot of compassion for them, but we can't take it personally. It has nothing to do with us. This is their journey, their path. And so you break your internal stimulus of attachment between you and that other person, that other group, that other thing. So this is a really hard time because we're noticing that we have to step back. We have to step back and watch ourselves being the observer. We also have to step back and watch ourselves interacting with relationships and starting to come to some truths like, she's never really very nice to me. Or I've been placating this job for a long time. I don't want to do this anymore. And so these are some of the truths that are going to start coming up. So be attentive, be caring, notice what you notice, offer what you can, and more than anything else, just be who you are. So this is the kind of stuff that I've been putting together and building. I've been speaking on different iTunes. I've got these videos going, so you can find me on DeniseStridenCoaching.com. You can also watch my YouTube station. There's about 300 videos on there that I've been sort of chipping away at this over the weeks or months and years. And it's Sunday. Get outside, let nature see what you observe and play. Have a good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.